Hello, and welcome to AFN Network's brand new show, The Indoor Football Experience. My name is RJ Ciancio. I'm one of the co-hosts along with Coach Hart Jr. How are you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing real good, RJ. I'm looking forward to getting this show off the ground. It's going to be a great opportunity for the network. It's going to be a great opportunity for me and you, and it's going to be a great opportunity to get some arena and indoor football players the exposure that they have earned and deserve, man.
You're right, and we have Omar Cook from the San Diego Strike Force joining us today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having Omar, talking to him. 27 years old, playing in a great league and in a great situation, having a tough season. But, like I said, a player out there who has worked hard and deserves the exposure. And I'm glad that we could get Omar on our debut show, man.
Yeah, and let's just give let's give the fans a bit of a background on how we know the game. So, Coach, why don't you give a bit of your resume?
Well, I've been in initially, we had an arena team here in the area I'm in St. Louis when I was obviously much younger. In 1995, got involved with that team from an equipment standpoint, and then finished my college career and just spent a little bit of time with the indoor teams here locally, and then really not much worked out as a player, and I got into officiating. So I spent 15 years officiating, 10 officiating professionally in the Arena 2 and IFL and CPIFL, which then transitioned to the CIF. Then went into coaching, got into front office and football operations work, and I've always been in broadcasting. So I've been broadcasting since 1992. I went to school for it, and also am a broadcast center graduate here in St. Louis.
That's a really impressive resume. I mean, especially when we consider how new arena football and indoor football are compared to a lot of the other sports that are in the modern day American markets. I mean, the test season for the Arena Football League was 1986. So it's really impressive to have all these years under your belt so early. As for me, I don't quite have the illustrious resume you do. He's the coach, I'm the kid, basically. I started covering this with Arena Football Talk around 9 months ago. I've always had a passion for the game. I first stumbled upon it in 2010, back when the NFL Network had the deal with the Arena Football League. And it's kind of been a bit of a labor of love from there. When I found Arena Football Talk, started writing with them. I'm now director of National Arena League coverage, and then Arena Football Talks began working with you guys at AFNN, and now we're here.
Yeah, I think it's a great fit, when you really think about it. Yes, I do have the experience, but the game is evolving and we're both passionate about it. And you really have spent some time covering, a new niche in this indoor and arena football scene, covering the National Arena League, really the newest thing that has seemed to be able to stick and also has put a high level product on the field.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with what the National Arena League has done so far. It's I think with the NAL and not just the NAL, but I'm using them as an example. They're doing the smart thing and they're taking quality over quantity. You saw this in the AFL recently with the contraction. You are not seeing these. They're not going to accept weak teams just because they have the money. They want to make sure there's a stable ownership. I mean, last year, Jeffrey Bushi, formerly of the Sharks, he left this offseason. He had his hand in running the Maine Mammoths, the Carolina Cobras, and the Jacksonville Sharks. And when any team needed help, he would go out there and help them to help build a sustainable core so that way this league wouldn't go under.
Yeah, and that's always key. But I look at the time I spent in the IFL, which was just a couple years, but I've always been a fan and a big promoter of that league as far as what they do on the field and how they help players move forward. In 2009, 2010, look, I know 20 plus teams in the league, this and that, and then they bounced around, really trying to stabilize what markets were gonna work. They had the East Coast, Midwest, and they had a little bit of a Western movement there for a while. And now, although their teams are spaced out a little bit, and that always travel's the big issue. Look at the IFL, just 10 teams now. So they are taking the same model as these other teams. The Arena League had to bounce back and really downsize to be able to stabilize. And it looks like the National Arena League, with the front office impact that they have in that league from the Arena League and the AFL, it looks like they're doing a very similar thing, particularly this year, and I see that to continue moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's very important to like stabilize a core because it's this is like any other business. You don't want to grow too large too fast, otherwise you don't have a stable foundation and you crumble. And if you've been following or looking at the history of these indoor leagues, they are notorious for opening up shop one day and folding the very next. There are certain leagues that like announced they were going to play that didn't play. There are leagues that fold after 1 year, and there are leagues that last the test of time. So, I think what always makes a league somewhat successful is there has to be a silver lining if it folds. In my mind, and Coach, you can agree or disagree with me on this one, is that a silver lining is like, I think it was the PIFL, the original one in the late 90s. They had the Omaha Beef in it, and, the league folded. To me, the Omaha Beef starting to play there is kind of a silver lining saying, all right, we may have not seen it as a league, but here's a good team that's lasted the test of time.
Yeah, I do disagree from a league standpoint, but from a team standpoint, and I think that was really what your point was. From a team standpoint, you look at teams like a great example, the Omaha Beef. They've been around. They've been a team that's been in numerous leagues, but the organization has continued to survive, and that says a lot about really what you need, particularly when you're talking the indoor teams. You need a solid front office. You don't need a lot of people. You need a few people who can wear multiple hats. And obviously, they've always had good people in the organization, and that's really the key to sustaining an organization. As long as you have the resources, the sponsorship, and obviously the financial backing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think to the untrained eye, people can, I've seen a lot of leagues starting up. I see this a lot with the lower level leagues, such as the American Arena League. I feel like a lot of people think they can start up a team with uh little amount of money. But I mean, Coach, I mean, you were in this as a front office guy for a little bit in the AIF. Like, how much money roughly will this go through? Like when you were in the AIF?
I mean, the thing is, it depends on where you're cutting corners, and sometimes you're not always cutting corners to be cheap and unprofessional. You're cutting corners to be business savvy and run a good business, and sometimes you're cutting corners to use in other areas that are more important to the football team and particularly the players. So, guys try and run teams on $10,000, and it might legitimately take 400,000. To run a professional organization, run it without any hiccups, make sure that you meet payroll, and make sure that you don't have any problems with your payroll. So every league is different, and every league, the structure is different. The key is, having travel partners, and that's really the thing that we ran into here in St. Charles, Missouri, in the area where I'm at. We ran out of travel partners, with Bloomington, going away, Chicago not having a team. Well, you can talk about having a team in a league if you've got a couple travel partners instantly 6 hours or less away. Teams
And
start to reach at that point, and add other teams that don't quite fit into what your model is. And then that's when you really get teams off the path. Go ahead.
yeah, and I feel like, you're seeing this with the IFL because going into this year, prior to the Tucson Serious Skulls being added, it was the Rattlers from the Southwest and nobody else. There was no strike force, either. And now the IFL is really building a Western presence because you got Tucson, Arizona, and the strike force, and now you're looking at an Oakland team for next season.
So, that's one of those potential reaches for a league, and one miss on expansion team can really take a league down. So we'll see what's going to happen and where the IFL is going to go, and if that's actually going to happen. Real quick, just for anybody that just happened to be jumping in, you're listening to RJ, the kid, and the coach on the Alternative Football News Network, and we're debuting our show, the Indoor Football Experience, with the kid and the coach, or the coach and the kid, whichever you prefer. So, RJ, we have our guest Omar Cook on the line, and he was gracious enough to join us bright and early out in California, where he is. So we want to bring him on. Just a little bit about Omar. Omar has been in the IFL for 4 seasons now. He's a defensive back, 5'11", 190 pounds, out of Southern University. So played in the SWAC conference, and they were champions in 2013. He's bounced around to a number of different teams, but one of the better players out there. And I'll tell you what, RJ, we're going to talk to Omar about this. One thing that players need to do is, Omar's our professional, man, from top to bottom, and you have been covering this sport, and you run into players who are just don't quite figure it out. So we want to welcome to the Indoor Football Experience Omar Cook from the San Diego Strike Force. Omar, good morning, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, man. It's been great following you. I know that you got out of Southern and spent a couple years still kind of figuring out what you were going to do, but you end up in Billings, and you end up in the IFL, and you're really making your mark there as a solid player in that league. And like I've already told our listeners, man, a real professional. So take me through your experience, man, of transitioning from college and getting up to Billings and starting your career.
It was an interesting experience, coming out of college. I started training for my pro day. I didn't get picked up by the NFL, so I took a coaching job in Maine. And while I was in Maine, I got a call from Coach Mike Davis, who was the coach of the Nebraska Danger at the time. And he ended up offering me a contract, and I signed at that time in 2014. And I went out to camp with them. Ended up getting traded right after camp, and went out to Billings for my rookie season. I was a part of their first year as a vet team. And it was a great learning experience. I had a pretty good season. I played with some pretty good players, Mike Green, Norris Wren, who've been some valuable players in this league and the arena game. And it's taken me throughout my career. I've learned a lot of things, and I've had a pretty solid career since then.
Yeah, most definitely. A couple years in Billings, and Mike Davis spent some time here with he played his last indoor year here with our 2009 River City Rage team, which was the inaugural runner-up in the IFL United Bowl, and then went into coaching with the Omaha Beef and Dangers, now with the Rough Rider Saskatchewan. Anyway, in the CFL. So Mike's a good guy, man, and he has a popular fan base around here. Talk about, man, going out to San Diego. That sounded like a nice situation that a lot of players at the IFL level would like to take advantage of.
Yeah, it was an interesting situation for me because I was actually done playing football. I had actually taken some coaching jobs after 2017 when I left Nebraska, and I ended up coming home. So I'm actually from this area. So I stay about an hour from San Diego. And one of my friends who plays on the team, Michael Mayer, he was talking to me about coming out and playing. And I was kind of shrugging it off for a little bit. And I kind of got the itch again. And it just so happened to work out at the right time that they needed some DBs. And I came in and I fit the role. And I've been playing pretty well. But I'd like to have a little bit more team success going forward. But it's been a great opportunity to be able to come play at home for the first time. I've kind of played in some places that were pretty far. So to be able to have my family here with me and be able to have them come to the games consistently, it's been an awesome experience,
And Omar, I have to ask, when you've played all your life outdoors through college, what's it like transitioning to the indoor game? Can you explain what that transition is like for players who are just the fans? Because I think we don't appreciate how much the change makes on players.
Right. It's a major change. The indoor game is a lot faster than outdoors. Coming from outdoors, I played safety and corner. So getting used to the guys going in high motion coming at you from 15 yards with the running start, That's a big adjustment. That's something I had to really learn going into my first season. Um, but I really think it makes you a better player because you're able to think faster, react faster. So transitioning back to the outdoor game, I think things will start moving slower. A lot of guys can't make that transition from the outdoor game to the indoor game. A lot of good players just because they can't adjust to the speed of the game. So it takes a lot of practice, a lot of work, and just a lot of experience to really get to a level in this game that you would like to reach.
And I think, how hard is it being away from family when you aren't with a local team? Can you explain that struggle? Because with these like big professional teams, you're able to like get your family these nice houses and stuff, like these luxurious, like over the top, Antonio Brown-esque type things. I mean, what's it like for you being away from your family when you weren't playing for a team that was local to San Diego?
Man, it's a valuable experience. I spent time in Nebraska and Montana. So those places are really just kind of remote from me coming from California. But it was a kind of a culture shock. So it was fun being able to adjust to the type of culture that I was in, the environment that I was in. It really helped me bond with my teammates a lot more because we spent a lot of time together outside of the football field. Um, but I mean, it's definitely different, and a guy that can adjust to those type of environments is going to be pretty rough because it's a lot of time spent away from your family and friends. So you just really have to be dedicated to the sport. You know what I mean? And I think it increases your focus because you don't really have a lot to do in those types of cities. So you really just focusing on football at that point in time. So it's a valuable experience. It helps you be able to interact with people of different backgrounds and cultures. So I really value those my time with those places.
I think that's really special, and that's something that's so great about the indoor game. And really, minor leagues or like professional leagues that are smaller in general, is that camaraderie feel. As a fan, when I go to the games, I truly feel more of a camaraderie feel than I do when I went to NFL games, because I don't feel that the players are quote, above me unquote. They're relatable. They work second jobs. It's like we're both guys just moving our way through life, and we're enjoying ourselves while we're doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Guys in this league work really hard, on and off the field. Like you said, guys work second jobs, to be able to provide for their dreams. You know what I mean? So it's a really blue collar league. You see a lot of guys going to work, a lot of guys still putting in the late hours on the field, off the field, outside of practice. Guys are trying to get out and transition. You know what I mean? So there's that feeling that you still haven't made it yet. So there's still a lot of hungriness that goes on in this league. Like you said, it's relatable. So that's the experience that we want to create in this league, is being able to be relatable to the fans and just having a good fan relations with people that come to the games. Arena football is close. The people are right there up on you. So you got to be really good with the people that's in the stands.
And also another thing I want to just bring up about the indoor game that, in my mind, has made it so special is the fact, and this is kind of maybe nitpicky, but I feel that the naming of these teams is truly special. I mean, the problem with some of the pro names, like in the NFL level, is that they do not fit their markets. But because you have to focus on your local markets so much in these leagues, names like the Tucson Circus Skulls, stuff that really are related to your town, your city, are just, I think so much more fun than the generic, and coming up to bat now, for we got the Detroit Tigers. It's fun to hear some funny names because they also don't work in bigger markets. I mean, let's be honest here, all right? I don't think the name like Lehigh Valley, like Steelhawks, would have worked in any other city but Lehigh Valley when it was around.
Right. Yeah. I definitely agree. It's definitely something that the fans can get into. You know what I mean? You look at teams like stuff like us, where the strike force, we're in San Diego, where it's a military based area. Or like you said, the Sugar Skulls in Tucson. When I saw that name, I said, okay, that's something that's going to attract those people in that town. You know what I mean? So it's good to have a good, relatable, mascot per se for the towns.
And every venue seems to have a nickname. So, you know, we have in Tucson we have the Boneyard. In Nebraska we have the Danger Zone. Has the Strike Force come up with one yet?
Not yet. I think we're still trying to find our identity at home. You know what I mean? And still trying to build that fear of coming to play us at home. You know what I mean? We're still trying to get things going. You know what I mean? I think over time, once the fan base gets built up and things start really moving, I think be able to see that identity at our home games. Just people being able to come home, come to our place, and look forward to playing us. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Omar, that takes me to my next question. And again, appreciate you taking some time to spend with us this morning on our debut show here on the Indoor Football Experience. If you're just jumping in, we're talking with defensive back Omar Cook of the San Diego Strike Force. And you mentioned talking about playing at home. You'll play at home again on May 4th against as we were talking about names, the Tucson Sugar Skulls. And that'll be the trilogy. I know you guys are going through a little bit of a tough time with your quarterback leaving. You had to play the next week against Arizona. So I bet the week off has been beneficial to have you guys getting back to getting some good practices in and getting ready for this trilogy with the Sugar Skulls.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to this. I thought we made some good strides in the last game against the Arizona Rattlers. We didn't put up as many points as we wanted offensively, but I think as a team, defensively, we played pretty good. And I think just having that defensive identity going forward, especially going against the Sugar Skulls, I think we can make those two games a good series. We play them on, I think, a Saturday and a Thursday night coming back at home. So it should be an interesting time. This time off has definitely been good for us, good for our bodies, good for guys to be able to heal up, and good for everybody to just kind of refresh and just kind of just go into the second half of the season with a new mindset, ready to go. We've had some changes at the quarterback position, but everybody's pretty much rallied behind each other, and we're still sticking to each other, and there's still hope for the season. You know what I mean? We just have to be able to come together this last half of the season and really put things together.
Yeah, no doubt. The one thing that I do like about the IFL, they seem to have the largest amount of players who handle themselves professionally. In so many of these other leagues, you get, one team might only have two or three guys that I consider professionals. When you were in Billings, my question is, did you have a chance to play with Tough Johnson?
I did. I had the chance to play with Tough Johnson. He actually taught me a lot of the game. He's very knowledgeable of the indoor game. So he kind of took me under his wing there. So I learned a lot of concepts and how to read the field there. You know what I mean? That was my rookie season playing with him. So it was an interesting experience, a lot of growth there for me.
Yeah, I had the chance to sign him here. He was kind of in a little bit of a transition period, figuring out where he was going with his career, coming off shoulder surgery. His mom had passed away that year, but I really was blessed to be able to have him in our organization here in 2016. He basically is, and I'm sure that you figured out, he basically has and is his own playbook. He understands the indoor concepts and the defenses that well. Did you guys spend a lot of time together as far as that's concerned, you understanding exactly how smart that guy really was?
Absolutely. I mean, we had a really good secondary at that time. A lot of young guys, but good secondary guys. I played with Mike Green, who was also in that secondary, who was rookie of the year, defensive player of the year, and who's in the NAL now, doing his thing, and Tough Johnson on the other side. So there was a lot of great minds on that defense, and for us to all come together and really just put our minds together and really just listen to each other. I think there was a lot of good conversations, and it's helped me now because I'm able to go into my own secondary now and be able to relay that type of information that I've learned in the past. You know what I mean? And so it's really helped me just be around those type of players.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time behind the scenes with him, just learning defensive indoor football defense, and he's literally a genius. He's headed to being a coach in this league or in an arena league here in due time. Before we let you go, Omar, and again, appreciate you taking time. We know it's bright and early in Cali this morning. What's the future hold for Omar Cook, 27 years old, playing at a high level still? What's the future hold, particularly with the XFL coming around?
Um, obviously, I think just like with any player in this league, I would love an opportunity at the next level, whatever that looks like, the XFL, CFL. So I'm just kind of just doing what I need to do right now at this level, and just leaving everything else in God's hands. You know what I'm saying? If God has a plan for me in that arena, then He'll open that door for me. You know what I mean? But I don't really overthink, what the next step is. I'm just trying to focus on right now.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, Omar, I really appreciate catching up with you this week, getting a chance to talk a lot, getting everything set up here. I appreciate you making the time for us here on the Alternative Football Network and our debut show, the Indoor Football Experience. So appreciate you taking time joining us today. You have a great day. I look forward to following the rest of the season for you, and don't be a stranger. Look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, sir. It's awesome talking to you guys, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you guys again soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Omar Cook of the San Diego Sugar Skulls. RJ, that's the kind of guy that's in the IFL, and that's the kind of guy that has a chance to move up with quality play. And as you can see, he's a professional, like I mentioned on the onset.
Yeah, I mean, last year there was a big incident. It wasn't necessarily a big incident that was blown into media coverage, but something I saw when I was covering the Lehigh Valley Steelhawks in the NAL. A player in that apologized to his team publicly on Facebook for missing the team bus. That's something I feel you should not do. Publicly announce, "Hey, I slept through my alarm, but don't worry, I'll be with you guys next week." That doesn't look good for the team or the league. And he was mysteriously not playing with the team by the next week.
Yeah, accountability, and you heard Omar say that, playing for your teammates, playing as a team. He's on a team that's 1-7 right now, and their schedule's not the most difficult as far as the IFL is concerned. The Bismarck Bucks play that for an expansion team. So Omar's had the chance to be in some games, and like you said, they had a quarterback that was playing at a high level that went to another league. They had less than a week to prepare, and they had to play Arizona. So that didn't work out good, but I'm glad that they've had the chance to have a bye week and bounce back. And like I said, for the IFL to make it, and I know you would agree with this, at least I think so, with as far as West Coast development is concerned, they need the San Diego Strike Force and the Tucson Sugar Skulls to succeed and be able to be in that market along with the Arizona Rattlers.
Yeah, I really think they do, because you lose the travel partners, like you said. It's hard. Because, that's why the Rattlers left the AFL, the Arena Football League, in the first place. There was nobody near them. That's why the Tampa Bay Storm folded a few years ago in the Arena Football League, because they were too far away. So even the most established of franchises need travel partners. It's not for lack of trying or lack of funding. It's just it takes a toll on your mind. It takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your pocket. So I think the Western expansion is good. The cities there are two cities that I really want to see get teams westward, and this is not going to happen for a few years. Unless the Idaho Horsemen of the American West Football Conference want to try work with the IFL. And those two cities would be Spokane and, of course, Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, the Idaho situation, and you're seeing more and more teams do this, as you know, and we've talked about this, the Indoor Football League and the CIF are expensive leagues. That's why leagues like Idaho's in spring up, so they can cut costs from a league standpoint, league fees, those type of things, and more kind of do their own thing. So they would probably be best served to try and, continue to build that northwestern market, so to speak, on their own, because road trips in the IFL and the CIF, they're just some money losers, and all I'm really getting to is if they stay within the framework of what their model is in their league right now, they don't lose as much money.
Yeah, I think if we're going to talk about the American West Football Conference, I think something they need to do is work their way down the coastline, because with all due respect, I don't know why they gave Reno, Nevada a team, because what's the closest team to them from there? Would it be Idaho, or would it be Tri-Cities?
It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you know what? You and I both know that that's too far.
Exactly. They were going to have the Sacramento Spartans in at one point. They were an independent team for a while, kind of went through some hardships. They they were announced and they were booted from the league. So it's a big gap. And I think if you're the AWFC, in my opinion, at least if I'm with AWFC right now, I'm not worrying about Reno as much as I'm worrying about establishing that Northwestern base, because you have to kind of swallow your pride, eat it, and say, all right, the IFL's come to take over California. That's okay. There's a lot in the Portland and Washington area up there. So you got places to work with. There was a year, I forget which year in the IFL, there were like, what was it, 3 teams in Washington?
Yeah, I guess somewhere around the 2010, 11, or 12 mark, somewhere in there, where they had a foothold on the Northwest. They just weren't able to sustain it, and again, that does have a lot to do with the teams.
Yeah, and Tri-Cities lasted the longest out of those teams that were in that area. So I'm glad they put a team right back there with the Fire, playing off the old Fever name, which I respect heavily. I think they call their venue the Inferno, which I love. I gotta say, there's something with the AWFC though I have to say does not look professional, and that's the turf itself. All right, so Reno's turf is old and yellow. You got the Skyhawks in the valley, and their turf looks like it was 5 turfs had been stitched together. And then Idaho, they bought the River City Raiders old turf, and that's great. The issue with that is River City played in the ice hockey venue, so the end zones are rounded off, but where they're playing in Idaho, there's a little bit of like hard surface showing, so that doesn't look professional. And then Tri-Cities looks really good, except for the fact that blue, the end zone color which they got from the old Fever team, that's not a color of Fire, really.
Right, and Idaho has the turf that was here laid in the St. Charles Family Arena, and I'm going to tell you that the turf is excellent. Yes, the end zone and the rounded corners, that issue that you mentioned is definitely unprofessional. But as far as the turf's concerned, I'm going to tell you what, the arena has tried to have a football team a couple years since, and the biggest issue is we don't have turf. That turf should have never been sold. Should have never left the family arena, and I'm going to tell you that Idaho's playing on a good track.
Yeah, I mean, how much does a new custom turf cost, roughly? Like a turf of good quality?
Oh, man.
I'm assuming it's a lot.
Say, yeah, yeah. I'm going to say, depending upon, like here, we have some players that are involved in, we have some turf companies here, so we can barter and get the price that we need. But I'm going to say 250 to let's just say $400,000 or $500,000.
Ooh, yikes! That's more than league expansion fees. Just to put that in perspective for the fans. I mean, the expansion fee for the National Arena League is $100,000. For the Arena Football League, it's $250,000. So I think something that turf is something that I think is very underappreciated in these leagues, because when it looks good, no one realizes it, but when it looks bad, everyone says, "Oh man, look at that."
Yeah, the thing with the turf is, it's hard for teams. Obviously, now a few teams have done it. Take a look at the Western Michigan Ironmen, a lower level team who's provided custom turf in their facility. That's one of the reasons that they'll have a team for a few years to come, because they'll do whatever they can to make sure they have a team and make sure that turf is paid off and this and that. But they've been able to do it. But it's a tough task. I've been involved in the process of it in the past, and I've been involved in the process of the family arena reacquiring turf and this and that. And at the end of the day, if the arena doesn't have it or the team doesn't already have it as an asset, you have a problem. It's going to be hard to field a team.
I know, like, when some teams will go for their first expansion season, we saw this with Quad City in the CIF last year. They might use an old turf. And, like, what's your thoughts on using an old turf as kind of a short-term solution?
I don't have a problem with it. We didn't have as many resources as we wanted, but we acquired turf that, like I said, that That 2016 turf is in Idaho, and that turf is excellent. I'd put any level player on that turf without any questions whatsoever. We were able to paint the end zones, and if we would have been able to do it right, like I said, we cut some corners. If we would have been able to do it right, it would have looked good, and everything would have been fine. At the end of the day, I'm concerned about the 50 yards that the players are playing on, not the end zones as much necessarily. And sometimes you can get turf from other organizations or however you get it, whether a team folds and sells it. But I don't have a problem with it at all. And to be honest with you, it's the most cost effective way to have a lower level, particularly indoor team in your area. If you want, that's the best route to go.
Well, I just want to emphasize the safety point of this because this was back in the AIF in 2016. The Myrtle Beach Freedom and the AIF were hit with a lawsuit from two Columbus Lions players because they're playing on faulty turf in Myrtle Beach. They blew up their knees, ended their careers. I mean, this turf stuff really does have a big impact on the game, and I just wanted to throw that out there to explain to the fans how vital this is not only to the game, but just to the players' safety in general.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you always walk through the turf, particularly if you're in town the night before. But as soon as you can, you get personnel to walk the turf, the entire turf, down the middle, down the hashes, on the boards where the dasher boards are. Everything you want to know everything about the turf that you can, because there is a safety factor in there. And we've heard of. I'm familiar with coaches who would not put a team on a field. I was in a tryout situation where they didn't get the football turf down and they had the indoor soccer turf down, and it was not nearly what was required for 300-pound men to move around on, and quick, fast, speedy athletes to run on and do what they need to do. And so we had to cancel a tryout, but that's what, if those players, I would suggest if a player ever felt that the playing conditions were not safe, I wouldn't play.
I wouldn't either. I mean, it's my body long term versus a short term, game. And that's, I think we got to realize, as much as we really fall in love with this is a game we're playing. Yes, it's how they make part of their living. I'm not taking away from that. But at the end of the day, there are winners and losers, and we have fun doing it. And is it really worth, putting that much on the line? I mean, I'm going to give the Sacramento Spartans a little bit of a shout out here. I mean, their venue right now currently, and the Pittsburgh Defenders are going to get the exact same treatment. So the Defenders hosted a home game earlier this season, the American Arena League, and I guess they couldn't get the turf down. And New England Bobcats should have forfeited the game because the glass was still up. I mean, that is so dangerous. A guy almost got put through a panel. I mean, that thing could have shattered and really hurt somebody. And I see photos from the Sacramento Spartans recently, with the glass still up there. I mean, I personally have never heard of a player going through the glass because you just don't see it. I mean, maybe if you're at, very, very, very low level. But I mean, when we say low level, we're talking AWFC. When I say this is low level, this is Bush League type stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of know my stance. I only really particularly follow four leagues for a lot of the reasons that we're talking about, and that's why I don't follow those leagues. Again, because I don't like leagues that have any team that plays in a soccer house that doesn't have football turf, and you're out there with cones and things of this nature. So those are just all the things that bring the sport down, RJ. At the end of the day, how we've talked about on other shows together, how there has been a little bit of regression in the industry over the last 10 or 15 years now, with leagues like the National Arena League seeming to do things right, the AFL bouncing back saying, hey, we don't have to have 15 teams. If 6 can sustain us and we can put out a quality product, we'll try and build on that. So that's a lot of really what you're seeing as things and organizations kind of come back to the pack. That the playing field is somewhat level on multiple different tiers. So a lot of people think that they can be a player as far as ownership is concerned.
Yeah, and like I'm curious, and we might want to go more in depth on this maybe another episode. But just off the top of your head, if you could put like, and you know the logistics better than I do probably about this. If you could say right now, if you had the money, where would you put your team if you had the money?
If I had the money, I would like to see a solid Midwestern league. And what I mean by that is maybe, Little Rock, Arkansas, St. Charles, Missouri, Chicago, Illinois, Bloomington, Illinois. I would love to see some of these areas come back that have a history of indoor football. And if they could get a quality product in there, they'd be able to stay. But right now, I would really, if obviously I would pick St. Charles, Missouri. If you had to ask me that question and I couldn't pick St. Charles, I'd say Little Rock, Arkansas, and or Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about in Midwest League kind of reminds me of what the Continental Indoor Football League was doing at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yeah.
UIFL was trying to do as well.
Yeah, definitely, and that's when again we had those teams that were missing. We're missing Bloomington, Illinois. We're missing Chicago, Illinois. We're missing Kansas City, who's kind of been hit and miss. As far as having a team there, it seems like a couple years and then gone a couple years, what have you. So we're missing that some of these Midwest regions that have had teams in the past that just haven't been able to sustain them for whatever reason. And again, the industry is impacted by a lot of different things as far as why teams make it or don't make it.
And like, if you have a team in your market, let me just say, I bought season tickets for $100 to the New York Streets of the National Arena. I mean, these are, especially when the teams are newer, those packages, they're affordable, they're fun, it's family friendly. I didn't, at least Coach, I haven't seen this as much. I mean, there's very little public drunkenness, like, hey, Homer, I'm Barney Gumble, want a beer? There's a lot less of that type of thing that you see in the NFL.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. But it seems like again, one thing that I always noticed, and the great thing about indoor and arena is that 30 minutes that just about every team does in this industry, post game, where your fans can come on the field, take pictures with the players, coaches, what have you. The one thing that I always noticed there and always had the opportunity to talk to people about, it seemed to be a high percentage one, and the arena and indoor game attracts more female fans that like football for the simple fact there's less to watch with a smaller field, and there's a lot of scoring. So people like seeing people make plays, and women like seeing football players make plays. So those are a couple of people that you have to market. That's a group that you have to market to, the kids and the women. And not enough arena teams or indoor teams do a good job at marketing, period, let alone specifically targeting particular groups.
All right, so you brought up women. Now I have to. It's almost mandatory I ask you about the Legends Football League and your thoughts on that.
Oh, I don't. That's called family record football, man. I don't mess with that, man. So, every now and then, I guess if I can watch a little bit, I do. But I'm not a fan, nor do I hate it. I've got plenty of other football that chances are it's probably best for me that there be some regular indoor football or outdoor football on that I'm watching when I'm hanging out at home and my family's around.
Yeah. I mean, as far as wholesome family fun goes, that's not the LFL's forte.
Yeah, and they're successful. They
Well,
continue
that's
to
the
come
thing. I
back
mean, what they market
year after year.
sells.
Exactly, and it sells to a certain, uh,
Demographic.
yeah, no doubt that you can specifically target.
Man, didn't they be talking about the LFL so much in the first episode?
Yeah, kidding. I
uh,
had I had no idea it would come up, but hey, this is the indoor football experience, so
I
that
mean,
that
when you
can be
first
an
come across it,
experience.
I mean, okay, funny thing about the LFL I have to bring up, the first lingerie bowl, they were from the Lingerie Football League. Now they're the Legends Football League because they try to move away from the, hey, look, it's really nice looking ladies type deal. Anyway,
Right.
um, even though they're still playing it up. I don't care what the name says. The first event was a pay-per-view called the Lingerie Bowl in 2004. Now tell me, Coach, that was from Super Bowl halftime. What other event involving female wardrobe happened in '04 during the halftime show? Oh yeah, Janet Jackson. I'm just saying. I find that hilarious.
Right. Their family arena they had talked about bringing that league here to St. Charles, Missouri, and to our arena is called the Family Arena. And
Yeah.
it got shot down. It got shot down as fast as anything that I've ever heard was going to potentially show up at that building. So, like I said, man, I definitely wouldn't hate on it. It's just not something that I spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, and I think I want to make it clear that if I'm giving a league flack, it's not because I personally don't like the league as a fan. It's because I feel that it might hurt the product of the industry as a whole.
Yeah, that's always something that potential owners or anybody that's going to run a team needs to look out for. You don't want to have any black eyes as far as your organization. It seems like no matter what happens when you're a team, you're in a league, anything, your business gets out there these days somehow, some way. So you want to be able to run a smooth organization. And like I've said, there's a lot of different business models out there, but the number one thing is if you don't have the capital, you don't have the resources, you don't have the money in place by October or November, you probably shouldn't even take it on.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes hard for owners to accept that we're not ready for this. A great example of somebody just admitting the fact that this is too big of an endeavor is Greg Fernario, because last season he tried to start up a new league called Professional Arena Football because he wanted the NAL quality type league, but he didn't want the long season that the NAL has. So he went out to do that, and he said, all right, well, these teams aren't meeting our standards. We can't do this, and I'm not willing to put the time in. I've talked to Fornario a couple of times about, bringing the league back potentially, because people like the idea of it. And he said, listen, as long as I'm running my West Virginia Rough Riders that just came from Richmond, I am not going to be running a football league. And major props to Greg for admitting that, because I feel like a lot of people aren't able to swallow their pride and say, yeah, it's too much for me, because it's nothing to knock against Greg. Greg just knows it's not smart business.
Yeah, and again, anybody who's going to potentially own or run a team, you have to make good business decisions. So, hey, I'm all for it. Making good decisions to keep franchises above water and keep franchises coming back year in and year out. Again and again and again, instead of one. We see some one-hit wonders, and that's unfortunate. At the end of the day, we were a one-hit wonder. We didn't know it at the time, but year one, the things that went on in year one were great. The things that went on in year two weren't so great, and it affected the product on the field, and it affected the product in the stands.
And I just am wondering, about going back to the marketing side a little bit. You have seen teams change their names a lot, especially in that family arena. What goes into that?
Oh, when you change the name so many times now, let's see, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, potentially 7 different team names in there over about a 20-year period of time, 15-year period of time. After the first couple times, it seems okay, but then it seems almost like you're regurgitating the same product to the fans, and the fans are like, oh, it's the same old ownership, they just changed the name. And a lot of times that's not even the case. It's different ownership. It's a different person trying to take a whack at things, and they don't want the name of the person that was in there before them.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, I pulled up some of the names that were used, and this was just for the River City Rage franchise. 2001, the St. Louis Renegades. 2002, River City Renegades. 2003 to 2004, the Show Me Believers.
Yeah.
And then you ended with the River City Rage. They got there eventually.
Yeah, and then we had the Missouri Monsters, we had the St. Louis Attack, we had the River City Raiders, and we were supposed to, even after that, have an NGL team that never happened that was going to be called the Stampede. So, again, the the first owners that you talked about, the two Renegade teams, the Show Me Believers and the River City Rage, were run by ownership that had everything in place ahead of time. Even at one time, our River City Rage owner, he owned two teams. He ran the team in Omaha and he ran the team here. It was funny because, like the mascot, it was the same mascot. He was just in different colors. Everything was doubled up. Um, so one team was named the Beef and the other team was named the Rage, and it was just funny. But those owners, they came in, they had a business model that had uh, funds in place to run the team, by the end of the previous calendar year. The other teams that came in, they tried to run the team almost kind of paycheck to paycheck, so to speak. And you just can't do it. I've had experiences with both, so that's what I've learned. You got to have the money, man, in October, November.
And I think something that's always important is having a good market. But like in your mind, what makes a market? Because is it just the population, or is it also the mindset of the market? Because I mean, Lord knows they've tried putting a football team in Trenton, New Jersey about 100 times over, and Lord knows they don't last very long.
Yeah, the sport and the industry is so undermarketed, particularly on a team-to-team basis. And a lot of times owners come in, and I've just experienced this. A lot of times my ideas and your ideas all seem great to us. So my ideas seem great to me, and I think they're all going to work, this and that. But a lot of times, you need to kind of do some checks and balances, and I would need to run that by you, and you might say, no, well, let's take a look at this. And so a lot of times owners just go down by their own, by their own accord, because they aren't flexible in what they're doing, and they lack having a marketing plan. And that's one thing with any of the teams that I ever get involved with, again, in this area. We already have a plan in place right now to make sure that we have that marketing in place and people know about the team. That team in 2016 finished 8-2, hosted a playoff game. We lost to Lehigh Valley by 2 points on a 50-yard, basically arena end-to-end field goal. And that was the year that the Rams left. The Rams left after that year. We came in the 2016 spring, and we did build some momentum off of them leaving and us still having football here in the area. But at the end of the day, I still run into people to this day that say, oh, wow, we didn't even know we had a team.
Yeah, and I think that has to be kind of hard for the people behind the scenes, because I cannot imagine the blood, sweat, and tears that you guys put into running a successful product and getting yourselves out there, drawing a crowd, and then to say, "Oh, I didn't know you guys were even around." That is that like a slap to the face, kind of?
Yeah, it's like the most, that I'll just say it's the most painful thing you can hear, because once you get in season, you spend so much time on the on-field product and your coaches and your players and everything and all the logistics that go on, and whether it's hosting a home game or planning a road game. So you just don't get that time. And now these organizations have been stripped down, that even having people, like I mentioned, having number of people in your organization that can wear multiple hats, you just don't seem to have that area covered. And that's one of the first things we took a look at, putting together another group that would be able to have a team here, was making sure that we had marketing at the forefront. And that's really what's hurting teams, specifically on all levels.
Yeah, and I have to ask you, Coach, if the opportunity presented itself, with the right circumstances, would you consider reinvesting in a team?
Um, I would reconsider anything that put me in a position where I had all my sponsorship, I had my marketing plan, and I had my season's resources in place by December 1st. If any of those things were not in order, I would not move forward.
That seems fair, because, and now the Maine Mammoths, who were formerly in the National Arena League, they're taking a season off to rebuild. The fans want him back. Like, what are your thoughts on them basically trying to crowdfund enough money to get a team going? Similar to how like the fans own the Green Bay Packers. I gotta hear your input on this.
It's worked on that level at the NFL level, and it's not something that can work on the indoor level. I mean, Green Bay Packers. Okay, that has a lot of cachet. Um, a lot of the other teams, no matter how interesting or how creative your name is, you're just not going to be able to generate what you need to be successful. And again, that's one of the kind of black eyes of this industry at this point in time, where those type of things are even really being considered. The only way to really do it, look at the successful teams in the IFL, look at the successful teams in the CIF, look at the successful teams in the league that you cover very closely. Those teams they have those 3 to 4 things that I mentioned. Every year they have those things in place by October, November, and then you start to see them kind of roll out things for the next season, so to speak.
Yeah, I just think, there's always a longing to have a team in your city. I mean, I live in Connecticut. For Pete's sake, we haven't had a professional sports team. I mean, we had, since the Whalers left, I mean, if we're talking Big Four, I mean, yeah, we had our National Lacrosse League team that plays in Mohegan Sun Arena, which is actually a pretty nice place to play. But, like, we have our last team that played a home game in Connecticut for indoor football was the New Haven Ninjas in 2002. Full disclosure, that is one of the stupidest names you could have come up with. I mean, I live in Connecticut. There is no influence of the culture here. I mean, I like alliteration as much as the next man, but like, man, that is cheesy. It was like an orange and black logo. It just, and then I go on eBay. There's a really interesting aftermarket for all this indoor football stuff, and I see like game used helmet, $600. I'm like, $600? I'm not dropping $600 on a helmet. I barely dropped that much on an autograph helmet from a pro NFL player. Why would I be dropping it on an old AF2 team?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that collector's piece. Being on the field a lot as an official and a coach and this and that, and being around footballs from a lot of different leagues. I have a number of footballs, and I have people that will randomly message me and offer this or that. Generally, I'll trade if I happen to go to a game. I'll take a ball from another league and do a trade. And I run into a lot of collectors because you mentioned kind of an interesting aftermarket, so to speak, for collectibles on the arena and indoor level, and it's a little out of control because, like you said, I'm not going to pay $300 for a game used indoor football jersey. I'm probably not going to even do it for an NFL jersey, or $600 for a helmet. So it's just funny. I get a lot of calls still. Do we have merchandise from certain teams I was associated with, and sometimes in a lot of instances, I've saved that stuff for something that's a little bit more special, so to speak. A couple instances, I had people contact me about, someone who was not doing so well or sick or this or that was a fan, and we were able to send out, a football. I was able to send out a football or a hat or whatever we had left, and that's really what I try and do with the extra merchandise that I had around, as opposed to get it to people that are trying to make money on it.
Yeah, because like I personally have a New York City Hawks jersey that sitting in my closet. I got an old LA Avengers inaugural season football. They only printed 1,500 of them. Basically, if you're selling something online, you're trying to sell to me personally. Your typical high school student. I'm not gonna spend more than $20 on something. And I like seeing these like game like the little game packets like going for $2. I'm like, that's 25 cents.
Yeah, I've never been much of a collector or interested in that type of stuff. I've been around athletics and professional athletes almost my whole entire life, it seems like. And I've more just wanted to be able to say hello, get a handshake. Now these days, get a picture, whatever, and kind of keep it moving. So collectibles and things like that really haven't been anything that I've been into, and anything, like I said, that I was associated with any teams. I tried to do nice things to kind of give back and still, even when you're, say, not per se associated with an organization and somebody reaches out to you and you can do something nice for somebody else, you still feel like you're doing something positive for that organization, even though, it might have been underground for a year or two or three.
Yeah, because you say there are so many leagues, you can only follow so many. There's, I've actually been working on an article. I'm gonna release it later today. It's called the Top 10 Forgotten Indoor Football Leagues, and it's either about leagues that lasted a short period, it's about leagues that, didn't play at all but had intent to, or leagues that were there but were very underground. So, were there any, one-hit wonder leagues, like one-year leagues that you can have top of your head just for the fun of it?
I don't know about one-hit wonder leagues, but there's always leagues. I always remember the National Indoor Football League.
The NIFL. They have a funny. They still have a video up on YouTube that they had something called Dasher Board Bingo. I think it's it was some marketing campaign they had.
Yeah.
And the video has aged as you'd expect. But it's really funny just to look back and see, this is how marketing used to be for indoor football. Props to NIFL. It's a humiliating to say that, but at least they had a marketing plan.
Yeah, they did. So that was a league that I don't know. It just seems like a league that I can never forget. That the Show Me Believers were in here, and we were in. We had success in that league, and the league had some success until. Just things change, teams leave, front office people leave, and this and that. So, but that league always sticks out to me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil what I had as the number one pick. I'll give you the initials. If someone can actually tell me what the name is, I think we can give them a shout out on the next show. Because this one's so hard to find, Coach, that I found maybe 5 pieces online about it. The initials are SFA. And no, don't look at Wikipedia. There's no Wikipedia page. It's not that easy.
All right. Well, that's give everybody a little homework to do, man, because I'm going to have to write that one down and think about that one myself a little bit.
Yeah, I always find it just fun to see, also, these league names are becoming a bit too long for me, I gotta say, as we move more and more down the line because a lot of them have been used. I can't wait for someone to say, I'm launching the United Indoor Football Association of America. Or something really ridiculous.
What they do now is it seems like you got to keep it to 3 words and just kind of leave league or leave something off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's honestly working well because I like how CIF is champions indoor football. A few years back, there was Supreme Indoor Football owned by the Cape Fear Heroes Barbara Springer. There's on the lower level you got the Indoor Football Alliance. I can't think of a single league that's done 5 letters successfully.
Yeah, even the original CIF was the
CPI
champions, champion professional indoor football league. It was like, whoa, come on, it's too much. So they did the right thing, changing up. Speaking of changing up, I wanted to make sure that we got to talk about the IFL and the NAI and the National Arena League real quick. So I was gonna throw out the games for the week, and maybe you can throw out the what's going on in the now.
Yeah, well, for the National Arena League, we got one game going on, so it's by default the game of the week. The expansion Orlando Predators, who are back now, are going to Worcester to take on the Massachusetts Pirates. That's the big news out of the NAL. The other 4 teams got a bye this week. So it's really the IFL for big news.
Yeah, okay. Well, the IFL for their week of action got going last night with the Nebraska Danger defeating the Cedar Rapids River Kings 66 41, and the River Kings just having a tough year as they dropped to 1-8. On deck today, two Saturday games. Sioux Falls at Arizona. I'll go ahead and make some picks here. We'll get yours when I roll through this. So Sioux Falls at Arizona. Give me Arizona. Arizona's made some key signings this week to improve their team, and I feel like that they're just unstoppable at home. Then the Tucson Sugar Skulls at the Iowa Barnstormers. Again, give me the Iowa Barnstormers and Dixie Wooten, former River City Rage quarterback, over the Tucson Sugar Skulls. Again, another top team in the IFL and another tough team to beat at home. Then Sunday, the Bismarck Bucks, who are 1-6, a tough season for them as they transition into the IFL. They're at the Quad City Steamwheelers, and we spoke on another show last week about Quad City. Give me Quad City, so I'll take the three home teams. The rest of the way in the IFL this week, I feel like Quad City is hopefully finally hit a good stretch and playing good ball, and they'll defeat the Bismarck Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, so Arena Football Talk, who I'm with, we do our weekly picks. I'm gonna stick by them. I'll read them off to you. Full disclosure, I did not realize the Arizona Rattlers had signed who they signed, so I said Sioux Falls Storm, but I'm gonna stay by it. I have faith in Lorenzo Brown. Please, I'm the only one, Lorenzo. Like, I'm not doing well this season. I'm 21-16. Give me some help here.
Right. Yeah, you need somebody to step up. Arizona it's weird, man, but they made some big signings to improve their team. That's the way the IFL has always worked, with so much rechurning of the roster, generally at three different points in the season. This is the third and final point in the season where IFL teams do a lot of sign and release and pick up who they want to make that run.
Yeah, and then I got the Iowa Barnstormers, and I do have Quad Cities as well.
Okay. Yeah, Quad Cities is playing a little bit better. They're getting healthier too, with Darius Hicks back in the lineup for them. Again, we talked about Hilliard, who happens to be the league leader in passing yards per game and touchdowns, passing yards per game at 182, leads the league with 29 passing touchdowns. So,
and then Quentin Pedroza, he is an amazing wide receiver.
Yeah, again, top wide receiver in the league, one of the top wide receivers in the league. And I think with some additional help at the wideout position, that just makes Pedroza that much better, and it gives Hilliard another weapon. I expect Nebraska Danger and Quad Cities both to play good down the stretch.
And those are really the two teams that I feel like we'll be seeing, like, fighting for the 3-4 spot this season.
Yeah, they're gonna push. Green Bay, who is in that spot right now. The Danger have a game in hand. They've played one more game than a couple of teams, but again, the top three is going to be in no particular order: the Rattlers, the Barnstormers, and the Storm. And again, it looks like Green Bay, the Danger, and Quad Cities. I just don't think the Sugar Skulls have enough in year one to really be a viable candidate to compete for that 4 spot. So look for those 3 teams to really play well down the stretch and duke it out, so to speak.
Yeah, and then, I mean, you follow CIF a little bit, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go over the CIF picks, because we can. I'll read you the matchups really quickly. All righty, so hold on, let me just make sure this is all right, right one. All right, so for me, we have the Duke City Gladiators. Who do they have? I think they have pulled. Hold on, blanking on who they got this week. I don't know, because everybody chose Duke City in our pick'em. I gotta find this right now. 1 second. I'm sorry about that.
Hang on, I'm looking too. So anyway, Duke City, defending CIF champion.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so I think it's Duke City versus Amarillo Venom.
I'm always I like Duke City. I'm a big Duke City fan. They actually have a local player from this area, and Dello Davis, on their team. And they continue to add talent. It seems like on a regular basis for what they need. So I like Duke City in this one.
What about Texas at Omaha? Who do you have there, Revolution or the Beef?
I like the Revolution. I think they have a little bit more of a stable team right now. I know that the Beef has been in transition. They do have a new quarterback in play, but sometimes it's hard this time of year to come in and just be kind of a one-man band, so to speak, and carry a team. So I like the Revolution. I think they're a little bit more of a complete team right now.
I agree with you. Then we have the Salina Liberty at the Sioux City Bandits. Who do you got there? This one and our next one are the most divisive in the Arena Football Talk picks. So, Coach, who do you got?
Where was that game again?
We're in Sioux City for this one.
Okay, in Sioux City. Well, I'm going to go with Sioux City at home. Again, Sioux City Bandits, a long-standing indoor football franchise.
Very long-standing. They were in the original IFL.
Yeah, the funny thing is about them real quick is the competition when they were in the IFL was very, very tough, as it still is, and they got out. And we always talk about these offshoot leagues, this and that. Well, one of the best ones, and I refereed some games in it and everything, was the APFL. Okay, and when the Bandits jumped ship and went in that league, they won a couple championships in a league that was basically, semi-pro league. They still paid their players and ran it professionally and everything, but they have found their little niche to survive and keep their franchise going. And it was leaving the IFL and getting in another league that didn't cost them much money for a couple years. They were able to sustain the franchise, and then out where they had some travel partners. So. Again, I like the Bandits at home, even though, again, I agree with you. This is almost a pick 'em.
Yeah, and then lastly, we have the Oklahoma Flying Aces at Wichita to take on the Force. Who do you got, Coach?
Give me Wichita. Wichita again, another long-standing franchise, original member of the IFL in 09, 2010, I believe, was their last year in there. But I like their franchise, what they've done. They've got a great building to play in, and it always seems tough, as we're seeing over the last couple of years, for these expansion teams to come in. That's why it's so interesting what the Tucson Sugar Skulls have really been able to do by putting up 3 wins in the IFL. So it's going to be tough for Oklahoma. I'll take the Force.
I'm taking Oklahoma here because, I feel like they've been close a couple times. It's bound to break eventually.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you can fault me all you want for picking them, but one week I have to be right, basically. I mean, so I hope at least.
And one week, like you said, they're gonna get a W.
Yep, and if you want to talk expansion teams that are looking hot, go to the NAL and look at the New York streets.
Yeah, I've been following them closely. Again, a good football roster comes down to good talent. So if you take a look at the talent on the roster from the quarterback position down, you kind of have a good idea of what's going on with the streets and why they've been kind of the surprise team of the National Arena League. Brian Hicks is an experienced quarterback, and they have some other good players. I know Deshaun Bird on the D line. So
Edgar Allan Poe, wide receiver, the former Maine Mammoth.
Yep, 6'5", 220. So they have a lot of good pieces in place. So it doesn't surprise me that they have been able to jump on the field and do what they're doing at this point in time because the roster's strong.
And who do you have for the AFL? Last night took down the mat. So the other game is Atlantic City, Philadelphia, and the Columbus Destroyers going to Albany to take on the Empire.
Yeah, I like the Empire, and I like who did you say? Philadelphia.
Philadelphia playing Atlantic City.
Yep, I like Philadelphia over Atlantic City, and I like the Empire over the Columbus Destroyers. Although I think the Columbus Destroyers, I saw they had some roster additions. They made some cuts, signed some players, and it looks like their roster's gotten a little bit stronger. But give me the Empire this week.
Yeah, I went with the Empire and Soul as well, just because the Empire has a great returning core. I mean, that Tommy Grady, Malachi Jones connection is truly something to behold.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Malachi Jones,
he was in
again,
the AAF.
he was in the AAF. He is also two back-to-back Rookie of the Year in the National Arena League, and then Rookie of the Year in the Arena Football League.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I'm calling this now, AFL fans, Arena Football League fans. Craig Peterson of the Columbus Destroyers will be your special team player of the year.
Okay, all right. Well, let's keep our eye on Mr. Peterson and see how he
Yeah,
fares,
I
man.
mean, last year he set a record for deuces, which is a kickoff that goes to the uprights in the National Arena League.
Hmm.
I was, I, if I'll go a step farther. All right, I'll go a step farther. Not only will he be special teams player of the year in the AFL, he will at least get a workout with an XFL team.
Okay, that sounds fair enough. That's the thing. The quality players from the IFL and the National Arena League, those are going to be the players, and particularly if they fit the size, and sometimes that can become an issue. Like, oh, why hasn't this guy got his size? Well, the guy's playing in front of him, or he's 5'10", 170, and the guy playing in front of him 6'4", 220. At the wide receiver position or something. So as long as they fit the size for their position, and they can prove that they have the skill set will allow them compete. Why not, man?
Yeah, and just because you aren't the right size doesn't mean you can't work. I think this was 2012. Jared Lorenzen, the hefty lefty, was quarterbacking the Northern Kentucky River Monsters. That's still one. If you Google Jared Lorenzen River Monsters, there I for he like there's a certain I forget who he is playing that day, but he trucks over 3 defenders. There's this 300-pound corner running over 3 guys, and the place goes nuts. It's still one of my favorite highlights of all time.
Hey, man, blessed to see the Pillsbury throw boy in person, man. So I know exactly what you're talking about, brother.
Yeah. I know. I remember because he was mentioned on NFL Network one time by Rich Eisen because the Jets were looking for a quarterback, and Lorenzen made this great tweet. It's like, "Hey guys, I've played in the New York market because he was the Giants' backup quarterback." And he's like, "I also look good in green." So that's a picture of him in the River Monsters uniform.
Right at like about almost $4 bills.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I love about indoor football. Anything is possible.
Yeah, he's one of the few guys that had a Super Bowl ring and was playing in leagues like this. So it shows you, guys like football. They love football, and the thing about it now is I think more of the players are understanding that you can only do this for a certain amount of time. So if you have the opportunity to play in a quality league, why not? So that's what I love about the leagues that we're talking about today, specifically the National Arena League and the IFL and the CIF as well. But I still think a player in the CIF, I think he needs to bump up to the IFL or the NOW level and be able to prove himself on that level. I just think it's a little bit higher level.
Yeah, and I think the story of how the CIF came to be is impressive because you talked about Champions Professional Indoor Football League. Geez Louise, it hurts saying one so long. And then we got the Lone Star Football League, which was a Texas-based league that was around for a while. So it's just interesting to see how these leagues form and whatnot. So I just find it very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, again, it's almost like the alphabet soup of leagues, and which ones can really stick and stay. But again, if you're just jumping in, you can catch on Saturdays. I'm the coach, that's the kid, and you're listening to the indoor football experience. I'm going to go ahead and let people know how they can follow me and stay up in touch with me during the course of the week. Again, you can follow the coach, Lynn Hart Jr. on Facebook. On Instagram, you can follow me at _coach28. And on Twitter, where I enjoy Twitter quite a bit, you can follow me at the Coach 28.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Facebook at RJ Ciancio, on Instagram at RJ_Ciancio, and on Twitter at CiancioRJ.
Well, RJ, it's been a great debut show. We also want to thank our special guest that we had, Omar Cook from the San Diego Strike Force, excuse me, in the IFL, and just look forward to a great arena and indoor football conversation like we had today. And we're going to look to provide the best guests in all of arena and indoor football from week to week.
Yeah, and just a shout out to our producer, Harry Bob, for producing this show. Thank you very much.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Appreciate Harry giving us the opportunity to come together.
Yeah. All right. This has been the Indoor Football Experience. We'll catch up with you guys next week.